finally found my inn, and I'm taking it. So here we go with yet another visit from the Dream Lover once we hit the bedroll. This dream happened for me after I finished the Gith creche encounter and then entered the Shadow-Cursed Lands in Act 2. And maybe it's just because I'm rather perceptive, but I picked up right away on the fact that things had become, well, a little more intimate. The scene is a little more complex, so I'm going to break it up and go over each part. So let's take a look at the first segment.
The voice of the Absolute is strong here, and getting stronger. I don't know how much longer I can resist it. But it's good to see you're making progress. You took an unexpected route here. You did a brave thing, saving those people in the grove. Not everyone would have helped. It just doesn't stop. We are being bombarded by waves of telepathic energy. Wave after wave with hardly a breath between them. I almost dare not rest. Each wave a set of orders to the infected. The order for your transformation has been given many times already.
Remember how I said this felt more personal, more intimate? For one, the Dream Lover is wearing noticeably less than he normally does. That bulky armor is gone and replaced with a revealing toga, almost as if he's trying to get you to check him out, and it's working. I mean, it could just be that this is what he wears when he's relaxing, but given this entity seems to have a very specific projection for each of your party members, I think this getup is 100% intentional. Perhaps he's trying to test the waters. Will Tav be attracted to me? Can I seduce them? I might be reading too much into this, but there is definitely a complete change in the way he's approached me up until now. This demeanor continues when he admits his vulnerability, saying he doesn't know how long he can resist against the will of the Absolute. And within moments, he sits right down next to me, and I am feeling major go green flags here. Like this whole dynamic between us certainly seems to have escalated into something more. I'm beginning to wonder what this might mean as the conversation continues. He went over some of my exploits and the path I took on my way to Act 2, mentioning how I saved the people in the grove. I'd love to see what he says on an evil game, and I will definitely be checking that out at some point. Picking It Wasn't a Choice nets a decent response about how not everyone would have helped, but I think I like the option best where you can say I did what I could, but I'm not sure they'll survive on their own. Let me play it for you real quick.
Don't be so hard on yourself. It's not your fault the world is wicked. You did the right thing.
He just comes off really sympathetic here, even considerate and thoughtful, and I like his encouragement. It just fits better, in my opinion, if you're trying to get closer to him. But then all of a sudden it seems like he has a migraine, and then he talks about how it just doesn't stop, how he's being hit by waves and waves of telepathic energy from the Absolute. These waves, he says, are orders for transformation. He even says how Tav's order has been issued many times already, and each time he's had to block it. But wait a second. Did you guys notice that? You see it? That failed perception check. Now, you guys know me. You know I've been into the Dream Lover since time immemorial. I knew there had to be something here. There's no way they lined up all these intimate clues without any kind of an inlet. No way. So I went back to my previous save. Thankfully, I save just about every night, just in case there are scenes I want to get back to later to record. So I went to sleep again the night before and just kept trying to pass that perception check. And it took a while because my wizard is not very wise, but eventually I finally passed the perception check, and it was so worth it, guys.
The hurt runs deeper than he's willing to show you.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Beneath the resilient veneer, a touch of fragility. He needs comfort.
It's been a very long time since someone did that. For me. A woman by the name of Belynne. We were close. It just doesn't stop.
Holy shit. This is one of those times where I'm so happy I was an obsessive freak that just couldn't help but reload over and over until I got what I wanted. Because it paid off. So the perception check tells us that the hurt runs deeper than he's willing to show you. So perhaps he's not just playing vulnerable, but actually feeling vulnerable. Or maybe it just really hurts like hell dealing with the waves of the Absolute's BS. Either way, this opens up a whole new set of dialogue that otherwise would not be available. I didn't even bother with the negative choices because they didn't suit my goals, but going with what is it or are you all right in this case results in about the same answer. And here's where it gets tricky, because he'll reply that he's all right, but then there's another check. This time it's insight, and so you need to pass both of these checks in order to see the entirety of the scene, which is just crazy to me. The narrator tells us that beneath his resilient veneer, a touch of fragility. He needs comfort. Comfort? Comfort. I could do that. I could so do that. And then it happens. Then it happens, guys. What does that say? Yep, it says I can hug him. Whew. Guys, I think this is actually going to happen. Do you think Larian saw my old video and was like, you know what? That Mmogurl is onto something. We should totally make the dream lover a love interest. Or maybe that was the intention all along and I was just picking up on the vibes, you know? Either way, you know I was all over giving him a hug. All over it. He seems incredibly appreciative for the physical, well, if you can call it that, contact. And I couldn't help but laugh at Tav's smug little expression here as she scoots her butt back over to her original spot. She's echoing my feelings right now, like, yeah, that's right, I just did that. But then he tells us that it's been a very long time since he's even gotten a hug, and here there are so many interesting choices. Now, because I'm fiercely competitive, I had to know who it was that hugged him last. I need to know if she's still going to be an issue and come between us. His reply is short and sweet. He mentions a woman named Belynne and that they were close. And being the nosy person that I am, I had to look her up on the wiki to see if I could learn anything about her. And wouldn't you know that there is only one Belynne on the Forgotten Realms wiki, and it's Belynne Stellmain, listed as a governing body of Baldur's Gate. If you check her history, though, this might not bode well. It talks about how she suffered a debilitating stroke brought on by the assault of a mind flayer. Then, clicking on the Council of Four, there is a little extra snippet of information that says she was possessed by a mind flayer. Well, shit. So, this might not be a real good, this might not be the best idea to continue on this path. The idea of an Illithid romance might be an actuality and not just a tadpole theory anymore. But I'm also thinking, hey, you know, Larian might have changed it up a little bit. Like, what if they made an altered background story? Or maybe she was attacked by some random mind flayer. It's suspicious, but it's not suspicious enough to judge him yet, in my own personal opinion. And he seems to have genuinely cared for her, enough to remember her fondly as the last person to embrace him. So perhaps it's just something to keep in mind until we have a way to prove what happened one way or the other. Now, getting back to the dialogue choices, you can also ask him just how long he's been trapped inside that prism. He replies that time works differently in the prism and that he can barely remember what life was like before, which I think lends more credence to the idea that he is trapped inside and has been for a long while. The other two choices don't give you much, but if you pick I hope you don't mind, he says he's grateful, which is a nice touch. I've got to say, regardless of what happens here with the Dream Lover in the future, I feel so happy, almost vindicated, that all of this preening over him feels like it's paying off. I don't know if this is ever going to pan out as an actual romance, but I'm really hoping it does. And while it could just be a touch of fan service allowing us to hug him, I can't help but feel like it was very well hidden, especially for people who don't roll high on wisdom, like if it's not a main stat. Many people, I'm sure, just passed right over it without much thought and completely missed the option to hug them at all. And I guarantee you that that hug is the key to romancing him if it is possible at all. So with all of that said, let's watch the rest of the scene.
I'm afraid this burden is one I have to carry alone. I just hope my powers last long enough to see this through. In any case, the Absolute knows you carry me with you now. It wants to retrieve me. I know. I'm glad you're on my side. I am the only one who can resist the Absolute's influence. Hence its fear of me. Its desperation. Unfortunately, that also means it is dedicating more and more resources to my retrieval. The task ahead is monumental. But we're all that stands between victory for the Absolute and freedom for all. This is not just about you and I anymore. It has become far bigger than us. You must infiltrate Moonrise Towers, discover the secrets of the Absolute, and put an end to it. So we can finally be free. Now I must rest. And you must carry on. Do not let my efforts be in vain.
You can ask about your transformation here, and he'll tell you that the orders for your seramorphosis to go through are oddly erratic, as though it can't make up its mind, which is kind of confusing. Alternately, you can choose, is there anything I can do to help you, which feels more appropriate considering my earlier nurturing cuddles. But unfortunately, he says this is a burden he must carry alone. Continuing along with this mentality, I picked I won't let that happen, which got me a pretty good response. It seems like we're building some trust here, which is a good thing. He basically goes on a bit about the Absolute and how it's desperate to retrieve him since he's the only one who can resist its power. But what's most interesting to me about this whole closing speech is how he talks about the whole plot is much bigger than he and I, and that it's about freedom for everyone. And that seems like a pretty noble mission to me. It makes me wonder why he's so invested in opposing the Absolute. Is it personal for him? Does he have a strong sense of justice? Or is there something in it for him that he's not telling us about? He does mention that we can finally be free, likely meaning by freeing me of my tadpole, but what about him? Will he be able to leave his prison once the Absolute is gone? I guess we'll eventually find out. I do have to say, the writers have done really well in keeping me guessing. At first I wasn't sure about Astarion's loyalties and feelings, and now the Dream Lover has me vexed as well. It really does set you up for Game of Thrones levels of paranoia. Like, you never feel like you can actually trust someone. But I was eventually able to trust Astarion, so I'm hoping things might be the same with the Dream Lover. I also have to add, I really love how these dreams are tied in with the story. It makes everything far more interesting, as though he will be woven into your outcome one way or the other, but one still has to wonder, will he ever be free of the prism? Is it even possible for him to leave? We've got a lot more game to go through, so make sure you come back for the next episode to hear more. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, as there is going to be a huge slew of new BG3 content coming out over the next few months, possibly years. I mean, there's a lot. Thanks to my Patreons for the support, and if you'd like to help support the channel too and get access to the private Discord and a whole other chunk of content on Patreon, then head over and make a pledge. I'll see you guys later.